What on earth was Trump thinking? In 2024, a golden-haired businessman with a mic in one hand and a Twitter app in the other marches back into the White House. The one and only Donald John Trump. And his opening line, "America's no longer your punching bag. China, Europe, Mexico, line up. It's payback time." And just like that, the trade war began. In simpler terms, he basically hit smash everything mode. Trump's weapon of choice? Tariff bombs. Made in China? Tax it. European cars outselling American ones? More tax. Auto parts from Mexico? Nice try. Tax again. Trump started swinging tariffs like a gamer with all power-ups unlocked. He didn't just play the game, he flipped the board. But let's be real for a sec. What was he betting on? Did he really believe America would win this fight? Here's the logic in a nutshell. We're the biggest buyers. Let's use that like a hammer. Translation: if we're buying, why are we the ones losing money? Classic Trumponomics. So is this trade war a cure or a curse? Prices go up for everyday Americans. Supply chains get tangled like spaghetti. US allies give side-eye like, "Bro, what's your problem?" And China? Oh, China punches back hard. Wait a minute, he picked a fight, but the other guy's not exactly a pushover. Still, Trump stands his ground. This is about American pride. Trade deficits? I'll fix them. China's been feasting for years. Meanwhile, US corporations have been quietly feasting too, but let's not ruin the narrative. Now the million-dollar question: how does this end? Trump's tariff bombs, will they boost the American economy, or will he get caught in his own blast radius? The more you know, the better you see. Now let's dive deep into Trump's wild ride of a trade war. Buckle up, folks, next chapter coming up.
Late 1600s King Charles II, customs, and a sea showdown. England versus the Dutch. The year? 1660. England just got its king back, the grand return of Charles II. And the first thing on his royal to-do list? Man, British shipping is in bad shape. Gotta fix that, fast. So what's his power move? He doubles down on the Navigation Acts. Foreign ships? Not in my ports. Colonial goods? Only on British ships, thank you very much. Why the drama? Well, there was one major problem at the time: the Dutch. The Dutch sea kings of the 17th century. Back then, ships were like the nuclear weapons of trade. And the Dutch? They had over 20,000 merchant ships sailing the seas. England? Not even close. The Dutch were cheaper, faster, and way more efficient. So guess what? Sugar, tobacco, cotton, all those juicy colonial exports? The Dutch could ship them faster, cheaper, and in bigger batches than England could. Oh, and they were sneaky too. They were out there secretly trading with England's own colonies, undercutting British merchants. Yeah, not cool. So what does England do? They lose it. That's it. Let's throw hands. Boom. 3 full-on wars break out between England and the Netherlands. First war, under Cromwell, right after the Navigation Acts. Second war, peak Charles II, peak shipping beef. Third war, England teams up with Louis XIV to crush the Dutch. In the Second War, the Dutch sailed up the Thames, set English ships on fire, and humiliated the crown. It's called the Raid on the Medway, and yeah, it's still a sore spot. England wakes up. If we don't lock this down, the seas won't be ours anymore. So they went full throttle. Customs duties, shipping rules. British-only fleets, all to pump up English trade. And it worked. Suddenly, British ships were everywhere. The Atlantic, the Indian Ocean, even the Pacific. This is when the empire where the sun never sets started rising. Mid-1700s George II, sugar, tobacco, and America's growing rage. Next up, George II. Fun fact, he's the only British king who literally led troops in battle. Yeah, not just speeches, dude was on the battlefield. But even warrior kings need cash. War is expensive. So George figures, let's tax smart. Starting with the colonies. Sugar, the real gold. Sugar wasn't just a luxury anymore, it was the thing. Tea? Sugar. Coffee? Sugar. Snacks? Double sugar. And where did it all come from? The West Indies, where enslaved people worked. Sugar plantations under brutal conditions. Britain slapped taxes on sugar, turned it into rum, sold it to the colonies at high prices, and boom, Used that money to fund the 7 Years' War. Colonial Monopoly Textbook Edition. America starts to grumble. At first, Americans were like, okay, we're British citizens. A bit of tax, fine. But then the scales tipped. Wait, we don't get a vote? But we do pay taxes? No taxation without representation. And it gets worse. Sugar Act, higher tariffs on imported sugar. Stamp Act, taxes on newspapers, contracts, even playing cards. Colonists lose it. You just want our wallets. Enter the Boston Tea Party. Then came the tea tax. A total trigger. Britain gave a fat discount to the East India Company, but slapped crazy tariffs on all other tea. Meaning, Americans were basically forced to drink British tea. So what did they do? They dressed up like Native Americans, snuck onto a British ship, and tossed 342 crates of tea. 45 tons straight into Boston Harbor. It was a full-on tea massacre. People say the harbor looked like a giant matcha latte that night. England freaks out. Oh, you want free tea and no taxes? Are you kidding me? So Britain sends troops, locks down Boston Harbor, and tightens the grip. Next year, the American Revolution begins, and in 1776, boom, Declaration of Independence. So, what do we learn? Tariffs? They seem like boring tax policy. But nope, they were tools of empire. And in some cases, the spark that lit revolutions. George II's sugar tax. George III's tea tax. All of it brewed into Boston's fury and eventually gave birth to America. Who would have thought 1 spoon of sugar, 1 cup of tea could split an empire? Early 1800s George III, the industrial boom, and the Made in Britain plan. Now meet George III. Yep, that George III. The lost America guy. The wasn't he a little unstable? Guy. Yes, he had mental health issues in his later years. But give the man some credit. He also helped kickstart Britain's industrial power. Enter the Industrial Revolution. Factories spinning, steam engines chugging, textile machines humming, Manchester, Birmingham turning into smokestack cities. But then wait, Indian cotton's way cheaper? Nobody's buying our British cloth. George's plan? Easy. Let's tax the competition. He slammed high tariffs on Indian cotton goods and yarn, but left raw cotton untaxed. Why? Import cheap cotton, turn it into cloth in Britain, sell it back to the colonies for profit. The empire's magic formula. The outcome? Manchester workshop of the world. India went from textile giant to importing British clothes. As one Indian historian put it, we went from weaving our own clothes to buying theirs. India's traditional industries collapsed. Poverty surged. Where did the customs money go? All that cash? Britain used it to build railways, ports, telegraph lines, canals, roads. A textbook case of how smart tariff policy built a modern empire. So why switch to free trade? Everything's going great, right? Then boom 1846, they repeal the Corn Laws. Why? We're strong enough now. Protection? Peefed. Let's go global. And just like that, free trade begins. Britain becomes the factory of the world open for business. Final word. George III's tariffs weren't just about money. They fueled industry, ruled the oceans, and built an empire. Thanks to those duties, Made in Britain became a global brand. But there was a darker side too. India's decline, exploitation, and the debt of empire paid in lives. So next time you see a tariff or a tax, remember, sometimes one little line of policy can change the course of history. Trump, the Mirren Report, and the tariff war begins. The moment Donald Trump kicked off his second term, he basically declared war on the whole world, a tariff war, that is. Yep, it was America versus everybody. You don't see that matchup often. Not even in history books. So naturally, people were asking, why is he doing this all of a sudden? At the center of it all was a mysterious document, the Mirren Report. This wasn't just some think tank paper gathering dust. It became the blueprint for Trump's entire trade and tariff policy. But what was in this report? What kind of logic could justify a global economic showdown? The world today feels like it's spinning sideways. Global trade rules are tangled. Trust is thin. And Trump? Still shouting "Make America Great Again." But here's the thing, if you understand how this all started, you can start to see what comes next. So let's try to untangle the mess. Let's find the key to the chaos. Last time we talked about Britain, this time, we head to America. Alexander Hamilton and America's tariff shield. Alright, Now it's America's turn. It's 1776 independence declared. But the celebration didn't last long. We're free, but our economy's still made in Britain? And that was true. They had their own flag now, sure. But their clothes? British. Railroad parts? Also British. Almost everything? Made in Britain. That's when one man stepped up. Meet Alexander Hamilton, America's economic architect. Yeah, that Hamilton, the guy from the Broadway musical. But real-life Hamilton wasn't just singing and dancing. He was the first Secretary of the Treasury. And the guy who drafted America's plan for economic independence. In 1791, he made his pitch. True independence means we make our own stuff. Why are we importing everything when we could be producing it? So he wrote the report on manufactures. A blueprint for building a self-reliant economy. What did he say? Put tariffs on British steel, textiles, and machinery. Let's protect American industries. The Tariff of 1816, America's first real, protectionist move. This was the first major protective tariff in US history. Here's what it did. Slapped a 2,025% tariff on British textiles and steel. Reduced imports from Europe. Revved up American factories instead. And the result? Northern industry takes off. In New England, textile mills started popping up everywhere. In Pennsylvania, steel production kicked into gear. This was the spark that lit the fire of American industrialization. And those tariffs? They did more than just protect factories. They funded 8,090% of the federal government's budget. That money built roads, canals, and national infrastructure. Basically, Hamilton's vision wasn't just about taxes. It was about nation building. But not everyone was happy to enter the South. Of course, nothing's ever that simple. Here come the North-South tensions. The North tariffs are great. Our factories are booming. The South we grow crops. We import stuff. Tariffs just make everything more expensive. Southern plantation owners were furious. European goods are cheaper and better. Why are we being forced to buy overpriced American stuff? It all came to a head in 1832, during the nullification crisis. South Carolina said, "This tariff doesn't apply here. We nullify it." Yup, the first official not in my backyard moment. And just like that, you could smell the early smoke of the Civil War starting to rise. Wrap up. Hamilton's tariff plan wasn't just about raising money. It was about building America's industrial muscle, giving the federal government a solid financial base, and proving that the U.S. could stand on its own. But it also raised a deeper question. Who really benefits from tariffs? For the North, it was protection. For the South, it felt like punishment. Tariffs, like any weapon, can be a sword or a shield. War, steel, and tariffs, how the North fought with factories. Let's fast forward to 1861. The United States is about to go through something massive, the Civil War. But war doesn't just need soldiers. It needs money, a lot of it. So what does the Union government do? We need guns. We need uniforms. We need trains to move troops. Where the heck are we gonna get the money? Enter the secret weapon, tariffs. Say hello to the moral tariff 1861. Right before the war kicks off, Congress passes the moral tariff. It raises import duties across the board. Most products now faced 30% tariffs. Why? To raise war funds, to protect US industry, and to cut off the South's trade with Europe. Yep, tariffs weren't just economics anymore. They were now a military strategy. Northern factories go full steam even during war. While the South struggled to sell cotton overseas, the North got busy. Steel for guns, cannons, and railroads. Machinery for ships and locomotives. Textiles for uniforms, tents, and medical supplies. The more factories produced, the more the Union could fight and win. Tariffs gave the North something powerful. A self-sufficient war machine. War, paid for by tariffs. By the numbers, more than half of the federal government's revenue during the war came from tariffs. Think about that. The Union funded a massive war without borrowing themselves into oblivion. And when the war ended, they didn't lower tariffs. In fact, high tariffs stayed in place. And that laid the groundwork for something huge. The rise of America, the manufacturer. By the 1870s, the U.S. was the #2 steel producer in the world. By the 1890s, #1. American-made goods began to flood the global market. Made in USA wasn't just a label. It became a symbol of power, scale, and innovation. And at the heart of it all? The tariff shield protecting American industry through it all. But let's be real, it wasn't all sunshine. Of course, there were downsides. Europe, hey, are you guys trying to shut us out? Trade tensions. American consumers, why is everything getting more expensive? Price hikes. So yeah, the industries were protected. But farmers, exporters, and everyday shoppers weren't always thrilled. Wrap up. The moral tariff wasn't just a policy. It was a wartime tool, a strategy for survival and growth. It turned bullets into steel, imports into independence, and chaos into industrial power. America didn't just win the war. It built its future while doing it. The next episode will dive into the tariff policies of Trump's first term and the mysterious Mirren report behind it all. So stay tuned and don't go anywhere. What if tariffs weren't just taxes but tools to reshape the world? From Trump's explosive 2018 tariff war to the secretive Mirren report, guiding his second-term strategy. This is the behind-the-scenes playbook of modern American trade power. It's bold, it's strategic, and it might just change everything we know about global economics. The more you know, the wilder it gets. Let's dive into the next story. Part 1. Trump's Tariff Bomb. In 2016, a flashy businessman with golden hair walks into the White House. You already know the name. Donald J. Trump. America's done being ripped off. It's time for fair trade. China, you ready? Trump saw America's trade deficit, especially with China, as a national embarrassment. So what did he bring to the fight? One word: tariffs. And lots of them. What he called a tariff bomb. Step 1: if it's made in China, it's getting taxed. In 2018, Trump pulls out Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act, a law that lets the U.S. slap restrictions on imports if they're a threat to national security. The result? About $360 billion worth of Chinese goods were hit with 10 to 25% tariffs. Steel? 25%. Aluminum? 10%. And not just China, this applied globally. Who got caught in the blast radius? Canada, Mexico, the EU, South Korea. Basically, allies included. The whole world. At that point, yeah, it felt like America versus planet Earth. Did the tariff war actually work? Let's break it down. 1. Government revenue went up. From 2018 to 2019, the U.S. collected over $70 billion in tariffs. Trump boasted, "Finally, we're making money." 2. Some industries bounced back. Steel and electronics saw small recoveries. Over $10 billion in new steel plant investments. 3. It gave Trump leverage. It led to the Phase 1 trade deal with China in 2020. China agreed to buy more American farm products. 4. Inflation pressure was softened. A strong U.S. dollar helped ease the impact of rising import prices. But tariffs always cut both ways. 1. Farmers took a hit. China fired back with retaliatory tariffs on U.S. soybeans. American farmers? Furious. Who's gonna buy our crops now? 2. Prices rose for consumers. Electronics, clothes, household goods all got more expensive. 3. Manufacturers were squeezed. Car makers, builders, equipment makers faced higher costs. Some cut jobs to stay afloat. 4. What about GDP? The Federal Reserve said tariffs had little to no positive impact, and maybe even a negative one. 5. Allies were angry. Canada and the EU hit back with retaliatory tariffs worth $20 to $30 billion. Exemptions, quotas, and deal-making. But it wasn't a one-size-fits-all policy. South Korea got a steel tariff exemption in exchange for a quota 2.68 million tons. Canada and Mexico first exempt, then hit, then exempt again. The EU? No mercy, full tariffs applied. Trump used tariffs like a negotiation whip. Make a deal, and I'll cut you a break. Say no? Here comes more tariffs. What did the WTO say? In 2022, the World Trade Organization ruled, these tariffs violate global trade rules. In other words, Trump's tariffs were officially illegal under international law. Part 1 wrap up. Trump's tariff war wasn't just about economics. It was about politics, national pride, negotiation, and even emotion. Some said it worked, others said it backfired. But one thing is clear. Trump was the first U.S. president to use tariffs as a full-blown weapon. And now we're left asking, did tariffs really deliver America first? And what did they leave behind? Part 2, the Mirren Report and Trump's second-term economic plan. In 2024, right before the U.S. Presidential election. A quiet but heavy-hitting document makes its debut. The title? A User's Guide to Restructuring the Global Trading System. Subtitle? Let's Build a U.S.-Centered Trade Order Again. And the author? Meet Stephen Miran, the strategist behind the curtain. Ph.D. from Harvard. Former Treasury Advisor. Senior Fellow at the Manhattan Institute. And most importantly, he's rumored to be the chief architect of Trump's second-term economic team. That report? It's not just a think piece. It's the economic blueprint laid out before the election even happens. 1. Tariffs? They're America's secret weapon. Right from page 1, Miran gets bold. Remember when Trump raised tariffs in 2018? Guess what? The sky didn't fall. We collected more revenue and protected U.S. industry. Here's the core of his argument. Tariffs on Chinese imports went up by 17.9 percentage points. With no major harm to the U.S. economy. The U.S. pulled in over $70 billion in tariff revenue. The strong dollar helped offset price hikes on imports. And Miran isn't stopping there. He proposes a new playbook. Strategic tariff management. Raise tariffs 2% per month, gradually. To create fear of constant increases. Use forward guidance. Announce tariff schedules in advance for market predictability. Design customized tariffs, tailored by country and product like sniper fire, not shotguns. His motto? Tariffs aren't blunt force weapons, they're precision tools. 2. The global trade order? Time for a redesign. Miran says America has long shouldered global consumption and kept the dollar as the world's reserve currency. So his question is, why are we the only ones paying the price? He makes the case. America deserves to ask others to share the burden. Providing the dollar as a global benefit? Time to start charging for it. Tie trade to national defense. If we're protecting you, you better open your markets. Example? Linked border security with trade deals. Like telling Canada or Mexico, you want US help? Buy more of our stuff. 3. A strong dollar? That's a feature, not a bug. Yes, tariffs tend to boost the dollar. But Miran says that's good. Use it. His proposals? Slash corporate taxes to attract investment. Promise the lowest global tax rate. A statement Trump is expected to make at the 2025 WEF. Leverage America's huge consumer base and capital markets. We've got the customers and the credit cards. In short, Miran believes the U.S. can survive, even thrive in a trade war. 4. What if other countries hit back? So what if foreign governments retaliate? Miran shrugs it off. America is the world's biggest customer. We've got less to lose. If it's a game of chicken, we win. His 3-part strategy. Use diplomacy to minimize blowback. But stay ready to fire back if needed. Maintain a global image as a country you don't mess with. His approach? Scare them, negotiate hard, and master the game. 5. Why this report actually matters. This isn't just a report sitting on a think tank website. It's being treated as the draft blueprint for Trump's second term. In January 2025, Miran was named official economic advisor to Trump. The report? Now the backbone of tariff policy, trade strategy, and tax reform. What does that mean for the world? China better brace for another round. South Korea time to rethink export strategies. Especially semiconductors and autos. Global supply chains pressure building to shift back toward U.S. dominance. Wrap up. The Miran report isn't just theory. It's a playbook, a step-by-step plan to rebuild the global trade system. With America at the center. This time, it's not about persuading with tariffs. It's about rebuilding the entire game with tariffs as the foundation. And the next big question? In a world reshaped by US tariffs, who's going to survive the new game?